Hello and welcome back to Retfurb. So on today's video we got this Sony 5520 turntable from approximately 1972. So I recently purchased this in non-working condition. It's got an issue with the turntable automatic mechanism. I think there's a couple other issues on it that need to be sorted out. So we need to get straight into it and have a look. Now I did briefly try to sort of have a look and turn it on. I could see the motor is spinning, but that was it. So this is pretty much how I purchased it. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the turntable lid, so this sort of slides to one side and then lifts off, and then we can get access better to the inside. Now the person who shipped this to me put the transit screws back in to stop it from moving around. So the person that did this packaged it really well. It's probably the best packaging I've ever seen on something that I've purchased, which is ideal because most of the time things get damaged in the post. So this was pretty much undamaged. I don't think there was any damage that I found in it other than what obviously was wrong with it in the first place. So you can see there the anti-skate weight has come off. The small little nylon thread, I think it's nylon thread, is broken, so I'm going to replace that. So now I'm just going to undo these two screws that are on the turntable, and then that allow me to lift this section off, and then I can get underneath. So I'm going to have a quick look underneath, see if there's anything obvious that I can see on the mechanism. Hopefully it's something fairly easy to sort out. And obviously it is a little bit daunting looking inside and you see all these different mechanisms. There's a little piece here that I found, which I worked out later on is the piece that goes on the actual turntable arm, which, you know, when you've got the automatic system working, it slides on it. You'll see what I mean when we get into it. It's sort of difficult to explain at the moment, but when I get to that part, you'll see that I repair it. So now I'm just getting the front faceplate off, which has got the on and off switch on it, and just checking all in behind there, making sure that's okay. Now I did see there was a bit of an issue just looking inside with part of the circuit board. There's a capacitor on the circuit board which looks to be damaged, which you'll see shortly. So I need to get this out and get access to it. So you see there, that's the part with the faceplate removed, and there's two screws that hold the actual circuit board and switch in place. So you can see there's some sort of issue with the capacitor. It looks like it's blown. Now looking online, it's quite a common issue that. So I've found a replacement, so I'm just going to remove that now and then resolder a new one in there. Now you can actually still use the turntable with that not in there, but apparently it's a suppression capacitor, so it stops any sort of noise when you turn it on. Now I didn't check it beforehand, but I could see there was an issue, so I just thought, right, I'm just going to replace it, save messing around, it needs doing. So you can see there I'm just cleaning up the solder, and now I've got the new capacitor to go in there, so I'm just lining that up, and then I can get that soldered in place. So obviously this is a reasonably straightforward job. If you've got basic soldering skills, you'll be able to do this with no issues. Obviously making sure that the turntable is not plugged in or connected to the mains when you do it. You want it all disconnected so it's nice and safe to do. So now I'm just going to put the turntable plate on, just connect the belt up and just see what's happening, see if there's any issues that have been resolved doing that capacitor. I can't see that's going to change anything. Like I say, apparently it works fine as it is without the capacitor in there. It's just a suppressing capacitor. So the speed adjustment seems to be working all okay. No issues there. You can see when trying to operate the automatic function there, it's just not doing anything. It doesn't want to move correctly, and so there obviously is some sort of issue with the mechanism underneath which is causing this. I know there's a little micro switch also underneath which is part of that mechanism, so whether there's anything that's you know, related to that, I'll have to have a look and check. So just putting a record on there again, just seeing if there's anything and just listening to see if I can hear anything coming through. Now the needle is knackered on this actual turntable stylus, so that will need replacing. It doesn't sort of sit when you put it on the record, it does skate a little bit sometimes, so that will be replaced. And that's the little small part I was referring to earlier, so you can see there that's what it's come off of. So that is part of the automatic mechanism and just the actual movement mechanism of the turntable arm, so that will need to be repaired. So I'm just putting some bubble wrap on there to protect it so I can turn it upside down. I don't want to just put it straight on the desk as it is, because it might damage something. So I'm just going to get underneath. I'm going to go through, just make sure the mechanism is moving okay, just take a few bits off, give it a clean, and then re-oil it all and just make sure that's moving okay. I know that it can have issues where some of the old grease and oil has gone hard over years, and it's just causing it to stick a little bit. So rather than just leave it, I thought I would do that as part of it, almost like a small service on it. Just go around cleaning it up. You can see it's quite fiddly, so you need to sort of watch what you're taking off and where it goes, and just keep a good visual idea of how you're doing it. Now, you could do it like this, you could record it, and at least then when you look back, you can see what you've removed and how you've done it. The way I was doing it, I was trying to do it sort of methodical. I just thought if I take little bits off at a time and don't go and take loads of stuff off and just have a pile of bits, hopefully it won't go wrong. So that's how I did it, and you'll see that it makes it a lot easier in trying to lay it out and make sure that it's in the position that it came out, and then it makes it a lot easier when it goes back together. So some of the bits you can't actually remove without sort of, I say can't remove, you might be able to remove it, but it's potentially going to cause damage to other parts, so you just need to be careful of that. Some of the mechanism is sort of fixed in place. You see there, I'm just degreasing it. I've got some solvent based degrease, and now just putting it on a cotton bud and just going around and cleaning some of that old grease off. The mechanism didn't actually seem too bad, to be honest. It was moving okay, and I don't think it is that's causing any issues, but I'm just going to go around and re-grease it. I've just got a small tub of wet lube that I'm going around and just oiling up some of the joints and just making sure that it's sliding and moving all okay. And then once you've done that, then you can start getting the bits back in. This is just a small little sort of circlip which holds that part in place. There's a few of them on here, so they need just to be pushed back on. Now, despite all the different parts of the mechanism, I actually prefer working on mechanical parts rather than electrical parts. I often find it a lot easier to diagnose rather than the electrical stuff, which it probably is pretty, self-explanatory, to be honest. When you're trying to diagnose electronic bits on a circuit board, it can turn into a right nightmare. But the mechanical bits, you can tend to get your head around a bit more. Well, I can anyway. I think it's a lot easier to look around and see what's not moving, or what, if it's not lining up. And yeah, it's just a lot easier for me to do that, I find. And just going around again with the oil and just oiling up those bits and making sure it's moving okay. So now I noticed on this part, you'll see the bit moving in the middle, which I'm just touching now with my left hand, right hand if you're looking at it from the screen. So that part is part of the return mechanism for the automatic mechanism. If that's not in place correctly, it won't return the arm at the right place. And also, if it goes too far, it jams and then it won't go back. You'll see in a minute, I'll demonstrate that. It'll get to the middle and then it'll try to go back, and it'll bounce and it won't go back to the start position of the arm because it gets jammed. So that's part of the reason this mechanism's not working properly. See, that's exactly what I mean. See, it's sort of sprung back because it's now jammed. It won't go back to the start position now because that bit underneath is jamming. So we need to adjust that and get that right location, and that'll then mean that when the automatic section gets to the end of the record, it'll then go back to the start position. So first, before I do that, I'm just going to repair this small little arm rester piece. Don't really know what it's called, but there's probably a proper name for it. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to sand down the plastic on both sides, and I'm going to use a method which I use quite often for repairing things like this on the videos, which is super glue and bicarbonate of soda, which then acts as like a cement on it. So I'm going to build that up, just get this bit stuck first, and I'm going to build up on either side bicarbonate of soda, which you'll see there, just normal bicarbonate of soda. I think people are quite surprised when you say you use that. But it does go off really hard, and it just acts as a bit more of a bridge. I'm not saying it's indestructible or anything, but it acts as a bridge, and especially on something like this, as long as you're putting it on the side, it's not going to interfere too much. You don't want to build it up loads and loads, but just build it up enough that gives it a bit more strength. And then I'm going to sand it down and just make it look a bit more presentable, and then you'll see in a minute I've dusted over some black aerosol and it actually came out okay. Unless you're doing close inspection, you wouldn't even notice just using the turntable. So now I can get that located back in place. This is obviously quite a key part to the mechanism for the return and the automatic system, and just in general for the turntable to work correctly. You've got to get it at the right height, otherwise if you don't get that at the right height it won't work and it won't return back to the start. So now going back to this part again with this automatic function, when it gets to the end of the record, I've now got to adjust it. Now, I didn't video record this very well, but you look at the top left of where I'm screwing at the moment, there's some screws which you can undo and you can move that rod and then bolt it back in place. So that's what I'm trying to do now. Again, I didn't show it brilliantly, but I'm just trying to do that at the moment and getting that located, so then once the record gets to the end it will return back to the start. So now just doing a quick check on that and just seeing where we are with it. Now this took me quite a bit of messing around with on and off. Obviously I've condensed it down a lot, but I must have done it, I don't know, about 8 times. Sometimes it wouldn't be quite far enough, sometimes it was too far, as you can see there. But that now you can see the function is starting to work better. It is returning back to the original place. Now I'm just adjusting that resting part again, which I repaired, just adjusting it a little bit higher because it wasn't quite going back enough. So you can see there, it's the records, well, the needle's knackered anyway, so it does move a little bit, but the record didn't quite go in the start position. So there's a small adjusting screw, which you'll see me in a minute and I'll point out, which adjusts that start position. So now I'm just going to change the needle and stylus and cartridge on this. I've got a different type, which is the non-Sony type. It's the Audio Technica VM95, I think it was off the top of my head. So quite a few people said this is a good upgrade for this turntable, and it's not too expensive. I think it was about £30 from Amazon, and it's a good upgrade for the sound. Now I did have to modify it a little bit to get it to fit correctly, because I didn't need those threaded parts. You'll see that I was just threading it in, so I drilled them out so the screws could go through and then be screwed into the actual top cap for the arm. I wanted to keep it looking original still, but adding that stylus, and I'm just going to pack it out a little bit with some washers and just to make it the same level as the original Sony one. You could use the original Sony one and just change the actual stylus part, the needle part itself, and you know, that would have been perfectly fine, which I'm going to keep with the turntable. But I thought, you know, while I'm here, if I can upgrade it and make it sound a little bit better as well, whilst keeping it looking original, as you can see, you know, I thought that was a good little addition to the turntable. And then there's some small little wires, I think there's 5 in total, they've got to be swapped over that connect to the cartridge. So yeah, really happy with how that came out. Nice and easy little swap over, and then just to get that fitted back on the arm. So at least now when I test it, it will actually hold in place and it isn't just going to skate around. So you can see there, it's returning, it's starting in the right place now. Just doing another small adjustment here to that return mechanism. It wasn't quite in the right place, so I'm just done a small adjustment to that. And as you can see, it gets to the right position at the end of the record. And now I'm just going to move on to the anti-skate weight and get that fitted. So I'm just going to replace the small little nylon thread. I've got some decent thread, sewing thread, really strong it is, you can't break it just pulling it, you need to cut it with scissors, so I'm going to use that as a replacement for the original. Just tying some small knots in there now just to get that so the actual weight doesn't fall off the end of it. This was a little bit fiddly, getting this all in the right location, but just trying it and getting it right and getting it right length, adjusting as needed, and then just tighten it around the end of the arm. And then just put a small little dab of super glue on that thread just to make sure it doesn't undo. Now I'm just going to go around and just clean up the main box on the turntable. So I'm just using some fine sandpaper just to get rid of some of the worst little marks. Not going too mad because this is, I think it's plywood that it's made out of. So it's almost like veneered plywood. You don't want to go too far and rub through and cause any issues. So just literally rubbing over the surface, getting rid of some of the light marks, giving it a clean and getting it ready to just give it a coat of, I've got some Osmo oil, I think it is, so it's some tinted oil which is actually used for worktops, which I thought was ideal for this because then it gives it a protective coating like it would on a worktop and also brings it back and makes it look a lot more fresher. So you can see instantly doing that how much better it looks. And now we can get the main button switch fixed back in place. So it's just 2 screws that hold that in place. And then the main faceplate can go back on. So again, this is just 2 screws that are held on from behind on this. And now the lid, I'm going to take the hinges off and then give it a quick polish up. Now I'm not going to go too mad on this. You could keep sanding it down with fine sandpaper. You don't want to go too coarse, you know, I would say maybe 2000 grit, 2500 grit. The finer you go, the easier it is to obviously polish it back. The only issue you have though, if there's any deep scratches, you obviously need to go a little bit deeper and it may take a little bit longer. So I've just gone over it, given it a quick buff up, got rid of a lot of the light marks. Now it's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it is. The top part of the lid is actually frosted anyway, so that bit doesn't need to be polished. So you can see that looks a lot better than what it did. And now just giving the actual turntable a quick clean, quick wipe down, get rid of some of the dust and dirt that's on there. And then getting the actual turntable plate fitted back on, and then we can get the hinges fitted onto the lid and get that put back onto the turntable. So now at this point we're almost finished getting this turntable ready to test and make sure it's all working okay. So when you put these hinges back on, you obviously don't want to tighten them up too tight that you're going to damage it and potentially crack the turntable lid. So that's it, now we can get on and test the turntable.
Don't bother.
So as you can see, it's come out really well. Everything's working okay now. The automatic mechanism is now locating in the correct start position, and then when it gets to the end of the record, it's then returning back to the start. So the new Stylus fits perfectly, works all okay, sounds really good. Everything on the turntable looks really good now. All the wood looks loads better. Now obviously it's not mint, but it's a hell of a lot better, a lot more presentable. The lid looks a lot more presentable. So yeah, another successful refurb done. In the process, which I didn't actually show, was that I replaced the belt also on this, a serviceable item. I thought it's better to do it now while it's all open rather than leave it and then have to do it later on. So that's all been done also. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for taking the time to watch it. It's really appreciated. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.